I would say I feel like I'm really it feels like I'm coming out of it, but I'm choosing to be cautiously optimistic. I'm choosing cautious optimism here, just because of how long the journey has been, and how sometimes I have seen moments of improvement being pushed down by moments of just a lot of difficulty and pain and just hardship when it comes to my physical well-being. But right now I'm in a much better place. Clearly I'm talking on the podcast. Yeah.
This is a testimony in itself.
Exactly. So last year, at the beginning of the year, I went into just rigorous physiotherapy and speech therapy. I had to do speech therapy, which was very humbling. To this day, it's the most humbling thing I have ever done in my life. Learning how to say ahs and mahs and speak, literally like being taught how to speak almost like a toddler. That was a very humbling experience for me, but I'm very glad that I did that. The speech therapist, she's called Kimberly, really was very patient and kind and supported me through it. I also did physiotherapy. My physio, or my exercise therapist, she's called Dama. She has become a friend to me just because of how much we've walked this journey with her. She too was also very patient. She supported me and really had my back during those tough seasons, and also doing like actual therapy, because navigating such big changes in your life does require a lot of psychological help and awareness.
Hello and welcome back to the 360 Perspective podcast with me, Trisha. Oh my gosh, can you guys believe that it's already been 1 year since we started the 360 Perspective podcast, and what a journey it's been. 1 full year with, a lot of highs for sure, a bit of lows. I remember just within this 1 year of doing podcasting, there's a period I fell ill and I was, in hospital, and that was quite a season. I had to take a bit of break from doing this, but then what can we say? God has been faithful. This year we took a leap of faith, went on YouTube, and we continue seeing the faithfulness of God, and what a joy it's been. And today we'll be just talking about an interesting topic on just resilience and how do you hold on to faith even through difficult seasons. And to discuss this with me is an incredible songbird, an incredible lady. I'm pretty sure she's familiar to quite a number of the guys who may know her, and I'll just let her introduce herself. Karibu sana Njambi.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Njambi, Julie Njambi Maina in full. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. That's pretty much it.
Gosh, Njambi, it's taken a while. It's taken a minute to get you here.
I'm so sorry. I know.
I feel so honored and so privileged that finally we are getting to do this. And man, I look at you, I see a woman of faith, just beyond the songs that you sing and the beautiful voice that you have. But you're such an incredible human being, inside out. Gosh, yeah, God has a lot inside of you. And maybe you can tell us a bit more about like what you do, singing platforms and whatnot.
First of all, thank you. I'm very honored that you even thought of asking me to come. Thank you so much for sharing your space with me and sharing your platform with me. I consider it a true honor. But my name is Njambi. I right now am a HR person, but I do have a background in psychology and data science. So I really just slip in between the two, which my day-to-day involves a lot of contracting, putting out fires, staff support, and a lot of data, just looking at the numbers, making sure that they make sense. Most of the time, they really make me look bad, I'll be honest. Data has a mind of its own, and I think I'm slowly learning how to just accept that sometimes when you're looking at numbers, they're not what you want them to be, but you take them as they are to inform you in terms of like improving some of the processes that you need to improve in order for you to see better numbers. So on a day-to-day basis, that's what I do. I'm a people operations associate. That's my day job. I work with a company called ALX and The Room, which deals with training young people in Africa, particularly in tech, and connecting them to jobs. This is a shameless plug. My manager will be very proud of me.
Yeah, clearly.
But that's what I do. On the side, I am a singer. Have been for a very, very long time, more than maybe 15 years now going.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have been part of the church community for a very long time. I'm part of ICC Church, have been part of the worship team for many years, not actively right now as I used to be before. But singing and worship has been such a defining piece in my life in terms of like faith and in just terms of who I am. I defined myself for a long time as a singer and as a worshiper. I still am. Just it looks different right now because life has life, as people normally say nowadays. Yes, and I'm also part of a band called Highest Praise Band. Yay. Shout out to H3B. Have been ever since it started back in 2012. I've seen the team evolve and grow over the years in such an amazing way. They have 2 albums out, and right now there's new music coming up from the team as a whole and also just individuals. We have a few people in the team who have their own music that's amazing and beautiful and just blesses people. Shout out to Nyasha and
Mary Mo
and Mo and
Betu
and Diana for just being so amazing and accepting the call to really bring people into worship through their talent. That's pretty much me.
Wow. And Njambi, I know in the past couple of years you've gone through such a journey that I personally believe is quite inspiring for a lot of people who look at your life. Personally, for me, it has been. I look at your life and I see a lot of resilience. I see a lot of hope. I see just a heart of a woman who truly loves God, who has such a deep relationship with God and a deep intimacy, that's beautiful, because at the end of the day, they normally tell us, you never know, you could be a walking Bible that other people are watching your life and just getting hope from. And I'd love you to just, if you don't mind, just sharing like your journey, the past couple of years and how that's been for you and just navigating the season that's been the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wow, honestly, when I talk about this story, I'm not entirely sure where to begin because it's been, to me, it feels like it's been a really, really long story. That is still unfolding and it's still kind of piecing itself together as time goes by. But yeah, so where to begin? I do have a physical condition known as functional neurological disorder. It's where your brain and your body are not particularly communicating as they should. So an example would be my brain is aware of what goes into walking, but my body cannot fully interpret what walking looks like or what it means. Putting your leg after the other and balancing. Just that balancing act around walking is something that as much as my brain understands, my body cannot comprehend. I don't know if that makes sense. That's like the high level explanation of what FND is. It's just a disconnect between how your brain and your body communicates. And it's been like that for ever since I finished high school. So it's slightly more than 10 years now. Slightly more than 10 years. But it's been more consistent over the past 6 years since 2017. I started off with a bit of pain on my leg, which I likened to, I'm just tired, because at the time I was so invested in church at the time, ministry was at the core of everything that I was doing, and my life revolved around ministry. Being available for worship services, being available for Sunday services, and any other mission that fell in between those two. So I was really pushing myself a lot at the time, and as a result, I started experiencing a bit of fatigue. So when I started getting the pain in my leg, I thought that was the reason, that I was tired and I needed to slow down, which I did for about 2 weeks, but I felt like it wasn't helping. So I tried to push a bit more and try and see if I can just navigate life as I was at the time. Unfortunately, the condition worsened. I think I maybe pushed myself a bit too much. I needed to now use like a walking aid. I started using a crutch, moving around. And then over time, that also got a bit worse. Started using 2 crutches to move around. And then before I knew it, I could not even use any of my crutches. I could only use like a walking frame. For the people who know me, they've probably seen me around with my grandmama walker, which I actually am very proud of. Like right now, it's so, like, it has seen life, but it's something that I'm actually not ashamed about, because it has helped me move around a lot. I have needed it, and it has come through for me. It has been a worthy companion, as I call it.
Your staff.
Exactly, my staff. Exactly, my the thing that I have in my hand. So I've been in and out of hospitals quite a bit, because the issue was with FND. It's not something that a lot of doctors recognize as a serious condition or debilitating. So I would go to hospitals and they would see me not even walking properly, and they'd tell me I'm fine, I should go home, it will wane, it will go off on its own, but it never did. So I think a huge part of my journey has been just battling with the fact that you can see yourself not being able to move and do things on your own, and having no doctor explain that for you very well, and asking yourself, okay, so am I sick? Is this all in my head? Can I really move on from this? What do I need to do to change the situation? It has been such a back and forth mentally, just coming to a place of accepting the space that I was in and the condition that I had at the time. And the thing is, I kept having these moments where I would slightly improve. So slightly improvement would be either I can stand for much longer, or I can walk for much farther. And I can, without getting too tired very quickly. But then I'd have these moments, we call them relapses, where I would dip, and I can't even use my own walker for movement. Someone would probably have to carry me, or I'd probably have to use a wheelchair to move around. And that was the norm. That has been the norm for my life for the past 6 years. And the biggest, I mean, aside the mental battle that was there, just seeing myself like that was, or has been, very trying. Losing your ability to walk. At some point, I had lost my ability to write, to type. I'd lost my any kind of coordination in my body at the time was just completely affected, particularly in 2021 when I had a really, really bad relapse. I had lost my voice, so I couldn't speak very well. My vocal cords kept tightening, so I couldn't really utter sound in a normal way. I couldn't finish off any word that I would utter unless I speak in like very, very harsh tones, which even then they would make me very, very tired. So I guess it got to a point where I genuinely felt like I had lost everything in terms of like my physical function. I had to work hard to do anything in terms of eating, talking, moving, working. Everything required intentional push and effort. And it was so exhausting, to say the least, to just push and push and push every day and have hope. Hope does not disappoint, but hope is exhausting. sometimes. I don't know if that makes sense, but like it can be really tiring to just keep hoping without any promise of change in your life. But hope will also hold you, as tiring as it can be. So yeah, it's been a really tough journey. Not just for me, but also for my family and for my friends, for the people who walked with me through that journey. But now I would say I feel like I'm really it feels like I'm coming out of it, but I'm choosing to be cautiously optimistic. I'm choosing cautious optimism here, just because of how long the journey has been, and how sometimes I have seen moments of improvement being pushed down by moments of just a lot of difficulty and pain and just hardship when it comes to my physical well-being. But right now I'm in a much better place. Clearly I'm talking on a podcast. Yeah.
This is a testimony in itself.
Exactly. So last year, at the beginning of the year, I went into just rigorous physiotherapy and speech therapy. I had to do speech therapy, which was very humbling. To this day, it's the most humbling thing I have ever done in my life. Learning how to say ahs and mahs and speak, literally like being taught how to speak almost like a toddler. That was a very humbling experience for me, but I'm very glad that I did that. The speech therapist, she's called Kimberly, really, really was very patient and kind and supported me through it. I also did physiotherapy. My physio or my exercise therapist, she's called Dama. She has become a friend to me just because of how much we've walked this journey with her. She too was also very patient. She supported me and really, really, really had my back during those tough seasons. And also doing like actual therapy, because navigating such big changes in your life does require a lot of psychological help and awareness. You can't live in denial when you're in such a situation. You have to learn how to accept your current situation and try and see how you can become a bit more healthy mentally, even as you're healing physically. So it's been a really interesting journey, but I really think I've grown quite a lot. It's one of those things in my life that I don't know how this will sound. I thank God for. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't quite know if I hadn't gone through this process, if I would have learned to value God, value relationships, value physical health, or just the small things in life that are, the Bible says every good and perfect gift comes from God.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. And it's very literal. Anything that is good in my life is a gift that God has granted me. And I think it's a perspective that I now have that's been nurtured by the experiences that I've had through being unwell. So I'm very
It's a
grateful.
gift and not an entitlement.
You're not entitled to anything that is good in your life, in my opinion. People might have a different opinion on this, but I think anything that brings you comfort or brings you peace or brings you has been gifted to you by God. It's not something that you're entitled to have. It's not owed to you. It's something that God has granted you by virtue of just being your father, and by him being him. It's a display of who he is, not a display of what you're owed. I don't know if that makes sense. So I've learned to see life through that lens and really be more appreciative of what I have and be more thankful. Don't get me wrong, there are times I will have that sense of entitlement and be upset because of ABC. But this perspective, I feel like, became more rich because of the journey that I've walked. that I think God allowed me to walk. You know, like how the Bible says, because I've been thinking about this verse lately, in Peter, like, consider it pure joy when you face trials.
Yeah, when you go through all sorts of trials.
Exactly. Like, I've been thinking about it more recently, and it makes sense. I'm not testing God by saying this. Okay, don't get any ideas, God. But
Yeah,
like,
but it's one of the toughest verses. How do you consider it joy when you face all kinds of trials?
I think suffering is a critical element to growth. I think without the element of suffering in our lives, we would not appreciate the goodness of it that has been gifted to us. That's why I think joy can be found in suffering. The lessons that you get from really, really hard situations and tough experiences bring, in and of themselves, bring a sense of joy and richness and fulfillment that I don't think can be experienced any other way or can be retrieved in any other fashion. I think suffering serves a very critical element in our life. I don't say this lightly because I acknowledge that there are people who are going through really, really tough situations, tougher than the situation that I've been in. I have a friend of mine a few years back who was really, really sick. She unfortunately passed away. And one thing that she kept saying, because she got to a point where she had so much pain in her body, she couldn't even eat, she couldn't even sit up or anything of the sort. And she kept saying she hated that phrase that people kept repeating to her, that, oh, maybe there's a lesson that God wants you to learn, or God picks the strong ones. She was like, I don't want to be the strong one. I don't, if there's a lesson that I need to learn, I've already learned it. And it's sad that she passed on. So I don't want to sit here and be and really brisk over the fact that there are people who are going through a very, very difficult time. I just want to acknowledge that there's a sense of wealth that we get from hardship that I don't think can be gotten in any other way. That's my opinion. Because I feel like that's why I consider it pure joy. The way I've been able to, God has allowed me to see Him through this season, is not something that I think I would have been able to see had everything just gone very smoothly and well for me. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And you did even mention how you also just went to India for treatment,
Right.
and
Yeah. Went to India with my sister. First of all, I just want to thank every single person in my world who really rallied behind me and my family to support us to go and take this trip. At the time, because I was not improving and I was reliant on medication, we were connected to a doctor in India who thought it was important for me to go there and see if there's a way they can help me more and support me further, because I needed medicine at the time. I couldn't stay without any medicine because I would get really, really bad spasms without them. And yeah, we went to India with my sister. We met really great doctors, and they really supported us. They didn't tell us anything that was significantly new. I think we were suspecting what the issue was. But I think the trip helped us get a lot of resolve around, okay, this is what we need to do. When we come back, this is the path we need to take in order for me to improve. And clearly it really helped.
Yeah.
Because ever since like last year, I went to India late 2021. And between 2020, that time and now, I've not experienced any relapse. I've not experienced any significant dip in my health where every other symptom has come back. It's just been on the up and up. And I'm very, very grateful that we were able to do that and people were able to support us and really even support us financially, not only for the trip, but also for the treatment that I had in 2022. Like, a lot of the money that people contributed supported my speech therapy and my physio sessions and my therapy sessions. And they kept me for a while.
Yeah.
And it really paid off. It really, really did.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, Jambi, I think a lot of people love you. You know, if you don't know that, yeah, we may be silent about
I'm
it.
so thankful.
And I think just the years that you invested serving and giving into ministry, I think for me, I always say serving God is never in vain, you know, because you could be serving in one season only to reap in many other seasons later, you know, that if God showed you, you'd be really baffled and probably even give more of yourself. And I think for you, that's really, I feel like that's what it's been, you know, because you invested so much giving in, you know, just the community of the body of Christ, through your giftings, your talents, your time, your ministry, serving in, you know, just different ways and capacities. And so I think many of us any minute will be rallied and told, okay, we need to come through for Jambi, like all of us, you know, because we truly know how much of a blessing you've been and just your authenticity and your love for people. And we are truly grateful for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I know you've touched a bit on just, you know, navigating your relationship with God through the season that's been. And I'd love you to just expound more on that, because I know a lot of times when we are going through such difficult times and, you know, nothing seems to be, you know, getting better or, you know, just improving. Sometimes it can really stifle our relationship with God. And, you know, there's a lot of friction,
Absolutely.
which is inevitable, you know, because I feel like we go through the highs and lows, almost the 9 stages of grief, you know, with God as well.
Absolutely. Very true.
So I'd love you to just expand a bit on that.
Yeah. It's definitely been quite topsy-turvy in terms of just my relationship with God. And I think, first of all, let me just say one of the things that I'm very grateful about when it comes to God is his patience. The fact that he's a patient God is one attribute that I am ever so thankful for. But yeah, obviously it's been like a lot of highs and lows. I think for me, my journey started when I got unwell. My journey started with the entitlement bit, where you feel like healing is your portion, as we are told, which it is. Don't get me wrong. But it gets to a point where you feel like now you deserve it. It is owed to you, especially coming from a place where I was serving in church and I had served for many years. And it's so interesting because when I got unwell, I needed to step back a little bit when it came to active ministry. At the time, I had told myself that I wanted to do ministry even more, and then I got sick.
Wow.
So, my instinct at the time was, you know, just a lot of prayer, a lot of declaration. You know, this is not my portion. I'm healed in the name of Jesus. I can walk. I am well. Like, I went through that phase during that first year, 2017, like a lot. And I felt like it was owed to me to be well. You know, God, I serve you. God, I show up for you. You know, I give of my time without asking for anything in return. That was the narrative that I was giving God through my prayers at the time. And then that transitions to a bit of anger and a bit of frustration and a bit of, you know, feeling abandoned by God and telling yourself that now he's left you and he does not really acknowledge that you're going through this. So I think I shrinked at that point. And my approach at that time was like, okay, God, so I know you have a lot of, I don't know if people make this prayer, but I make this prayer all the time. I know you have a lot of things to deal with. Like, I know there are a lot of issues that you need to tend to. Mine is probably like at the bottom, you know, it's not that significant, you know, but like, if you can hear me, just please come through for me. So I shrunk in that regard. And then I shrunk further to a point where I even stopped praying over my condition, because I felt like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I needed to at the time. I felt like I got to a place I was like, God knows this is where I'm at. This is what I'm dealing with. And if he so chooses to take me out of it, he will. And if I'm still here, that's okay. And the mentality that I had at the time was, he probably has other issues to deal with. And then that also transitioned to a place of, okay, now I need to learn something. Maybe God wants me to pick something. And it was such an interesting phase at that time, because I felt like, okay, if there's something that I need to learn, then may God be patient with me enough. If it means me being here longer, may I stay here just so I can grasp what he wants me to learn. So there's a point, it's so interesting, but there's a point that it got for me where I was like, okay, I'm okay waiting a little longer just so I'm able to capture what God wants me to get from this experience. So I hope I'm not rushed, or I hope he doesn't rush me in terms of me getting better quickly and forgetting or losing out on something significant that he wanted me to learn. And I think I lingered in that phase for a very, very long time. Not to say that I didn't want to get better, because I was really investing in getting better. I have done a lot of physio. I have done electrotherapy. I have been in hospital for 4 months. Actually, there's a time I was in Karen for 4 months in a physio rehab hospital just to get better. So it's not that I was not investing in getting better, but my mind shifted, and I came to a place I was like, okay, maybe there's something that I probably need to capture in this season. I don't quite know if I captured what I was supposed to capture, even though there've been a lot of lessons along the way. But my approach then shifted to a place of recognizing that as much as healing is crucial, and it's good and it's important, and it enables us to live more abundantly, I think abundance in life can still be experienced even in the waiting, and even in the turmoil, or even in the hardship that you're going through. So I think my mind then moved to that space where it was a lot more to do with, okay, what am I learning? How can my life be full even in this space? Which was not that easy to navigate. It wasn't particularly simple to come to terms with or to understand. I think I experienced a level of denial to a degree where I think I was also protecting myself from the difficulty of the situation. I don't know if that makes sense. Like where it's like, I don't know how to phrase it. It's like you put yourself in a trance of sorts. Where like, it's okay, I'll move on. I'm learning. God wants to teach me something. But you're failing to acknowledge how hard the process is in and of itself, mentally and emotionally, and even socially. So I think I got to a place where I was not acknowledging that, this is legit hard. It took me a very long time to even acknowledge that, because I felt like acknowledging that it's very, very hard, or it's very difficult, or I'm tired, was saying that you've given up, or you've lost hope, or and I knew it was also hard on my family. So I didn't want them to think that I was defeated, because I knew that it was also weighty for them. So it was a bit of it has been a bit of an interesting transition in terms of my perspective of who God was in my life. Coming from almost demanding healing, to shrinking and not even asking for anything, to now asking him, may I learn what you want me to learn? And then to also acknowledging in the process that I wasn't being very honest with myself when it came to the actual situation, and failing to acknowledge that it was difficult and it was painful, and my life had changed. I think even how I related with people did change. I think I think I denied myself from accepting the hardship of the season. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's only recently that it hit me that honestly, it was really difficult, and I probably wasn't handling it as good as I thought I was, because I was living in a bit of a denial phase of, it's okay, I'll get through this. It's okay, people go through a much harder situation, so mine is not that bad, as opposed to really accepting the rawness of the situation as it was. So my relationship with God has really evolved, and it's really transitioned as my situation evolved and transitioned through the phases. In 2021, when I lost my voice, I thought I felt absolutely robbed because I used to get a lot of comfort from just, yes, I was home all the time. I hardly, even now, I hardly leave the house. But at the time, I drew so much comfort from like karaoke and singing and, doing all those things on my own to a point when I couldn't even sing on my own in my room. I couldn't even whisper a melody. I felt robbed. I felt like the one thing that I drew comfort from has been taken away from me. That was a hard one. I didn't pray for like maybe 5 months. I think I was going to bed and I was like, God, and then I think I would have these moments where I would tell him, I'm here. It's not that I'm not here, but I'm not too sure what to say, or I'm not so sure how to respond to this situation. I really felt like he robbed me. Like he took away something that was so significant to me. And I think at the time now I'm speaking, but back then I didn't think I would ever be able to speak again, or I'd be able to sing again. So it felt very bleak, and I was very lost, and I did feel very alone, even though I was surrounded with a lot of love. It was very isolating, especially in the spaces where there were a lot of people, and you can hear a lot of noises. But when you speak, no one can hear you. Like not being able to communicate, that was very hard. So at that time, I did feel robbed, but I didn't feel like I needed to demand it back. And I think that's the thing that made me a bit more upset, because I knew it was a gift. Like at that time, I'm aware that any good thing that I have in my life is a gift, including my voice. So it made me upset that I felt robbed, but I can't ask for it back. I don't know if that makes sense, because God can choose to or not to give it back. So I also felt robbed, but I felt robbed and I felt mad that I couldn't be mad at God about it. I don't know if that makes sense, because he doesn't owe me anything.
It's true.
Like that's why I didn't pray. Because I mean, if I can't ask for it back, but you have the power to give it back to me or not. So at that time, my view of God was he was sovereign. Yeah, he was a sovereign God. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my view, he was sovereign. He was a holy, almighty God who can do whatever he wants as he pleases. And I have no right to be mad because he's sovereign. So that was a tough one. That was a very tough one. I think I was very quiet internally, mentally, emotionally. I just went quiet during that season. I later on, I kept asking myself, because I won't lie, there are moments I felt the need not to wake up every morning. But I kept waking up every morning. So one core thing I asked myself was, if I'm still living, if I'm still breathing, if I'm still here, then there must be something that's more significant to life than my faculties, than my ability to talk, than my ability to sing or move around. I'm still conscious. So then what is the significance of life if I have no ability to do anything on my own and I'm still breathing? Then there's probably more to life than what I can do. And I think acknowledging that and viewing God through the lens of, if he's still sustaining me with life, even though I can't do anything on my own, then I think life is way bigger than me. I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's way bigger than me and what I can do or what I can accomplish. And then seeing God in that perspective, where like, okay, you're bigger than me. Life is way bigger than me or than what I can do. there's still more that you can do through me, even though I can't do anything through myself, you know. And having more appreciation of life and of the bigness of God in that perspective. I had to come to a place where I needed to accept that if though my situation never changes, he still remains God. I still remain a Christian, regardless of where I find myself. I needed to make that resolve, as opposed to coming to a place of bitterness. You know, I needed to come to a place where it was a lot more to do with the small wins, a lot less to do with what I was missing. You know, it had to be a lot more about, oh, today I was able to feed myself well, or today I washed myself, or no one escorted me to the loo or anything of the sort. It had to be a lot more about those tiny miracles. Then there's probably more to life that you experience every day, and appreciating that more, considering those more of gifts, and not viewing your life from a perspective of lack. Yeah, so I think that's been the transition in terms of just how I viewed myself, how I viewed life, and how I viewed God.
Wow, what a journey that's been. And it's so interesting to hear how you navigated that season, because I know the rest of us were quite loud, you know, and we personally believe that lamentation can still coexist together with faith, you know.
Yeah.
And so we are the ones who will vent like David and complain and be like, God, I do not even
Which
feel
I
you.
so admire.
Yeah, because I think personally, I firmly believe, I think even in one of the episodes that we did with Pastor Jemima about crisis of faith, and I mean, she said, yeah, if lamentation was wrong, it wouldn't even have been a whole book in the Bible. So there's that place of both lamentation and yet still clinging on to faith. But I love, you know, your faith and, you know, just your journey. But I'd love to know, where are you at right now with your just perspective with God, you know, because you've taken us through like just the journey and the different season and how that looked like. I'd love to know right now, where are you at with your relationship with God?
Good question. I'm in a growing phase, as we all are, I would imagine, for anyone who is intentional about just the Christian faith. I'm in a growing phase where right now I'm learning a lot more about prayer. And what prayer means, what it looks like, and how to practice it a bit more in the way that I can, not in the way that I think has been communicated for years and years. Because I think sometimes we end up developing this desire to pray like someone else or to sound like someone else, which is a good desire. I think it's good, but I think sometimes you can try so much to fit into someone's mold and someone's journey of faith and forget that you have your own personal journey and walk in faith. So I'm in a phase where I'm really growing, and I'm growing in what I like to say quietly. By this I mean, before I got unwell, my life evolved around active ministry, being in a space where there were so many people, and standing on stage and worshiping God with hundreds of people. Now it's evolved to a place where my everyday is in my room. I work from home, so my office is my bedroom as well. I hardly move around. And sometimes I think there's a time I really despised that. As I call, my world is too small. It's too routine based. It's just waking up, getting dressed, working in the same room, taking bathroom breaks, sometimes spending time with my mom, going back to bed, repeat. And it felt small, and I didn't like it, because that's not the world or the life that I had envisioned for myself. You know, I wanted to still do active ministry and still be available for everything and everyone at any time, depending on whatever it is that we were doing. But it's evolved to a place where I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything. I have to track myself from a physical perspective so that I don't relapse. So because of that, I do have a bit of a quiet life, which I'm beginning to appreciate a whole lot more, because I think in the quietness of life, you get to listen a whole lot more to what's going on around you, and you get to be more attentive to what God is calling you to, or what He's requiring of you.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to accept that space a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to take life slowly as it comes. I'm learning to accept that as a Christian, I won't get everything today or this year or the next 5 years. There's probably a huge learning that's coming my way 5 years from now or 20 years from now that I'm wanting to know now, but I might not be able to. By virtue of the fact that I can live every day, to me, that tells me that God is giving me a new opportunity to see Him differently or learn about Him in a new way that I did not know yesterday. So I'm beginning to accept that everything will happen in its own time and be okay with that fact and not feel like I have to rush God or I have to rush myself when it comes to growing and building a foundation within Christ or in Christ, So right now that's basically how it looks.
Yeah.
It is quiet and I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
And I want to protect it a bit more because I acknowledge that the quietness might be just a phase or a moment in time, and things might not be as quiet moving forward. I have a huge appreciation for people who are in active ministry because I feel like they have to fight a whole lot more to have those moments of quiet and have those active moments of listening, because they have to always be giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and smiling and laughing and caring and just pouring of themselves. I can't imagine how challenging that is. I can't from a few years back, but I imagine it's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And I just have a huge appreciation for what you guys do, because I know that's your turf, that's your area. So I imagine pursuing the quiet sometimes is not as easy.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm developing a lot more appreciation for it.
Great. Wow. So as we learn this, Njambi, I know you've already just touched on it, but I wanted you to just expound more about just seasons. You've already touched a bit on it, but then seasons in transitions, because I think for the past couple of years, your life has experienced a whole lot of that.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes you love clinging on to old seasons. So talk about that as we learn this.
Yeah, sure thing. So yes, seasons are inevitable. Nature dictates that you have to transition from one point to another. Not just you, but everything else in this life, all the flora and fauna have to go through certain seasons that are placed on them. It's an inevitable thing that happens. It's imperative that we go through seasons. And as a result, to quote Darwin, survival for the fittest. Those are the ones who survive are the ones who are adaptable and those who are willing to accept the changes that come in their life. From a Christian perspective, this is just my humble opinion. I think when we transition and when we are more accepting of seasons as they come in, they give us an opportunity to view God in a way that we wouldn't otherwise have viewed him had we stuck in the same season, or if we keep choosing to just cling to a specific time in our lives. I think seasons give us the opportunity to see or explore a deeper mystery of who God is, in a way that I think if everything remained constant or unchanging, we wouldn't have seen that. I think seasons welcome us to having a different perspective, a deeper perspective, if you are intentional. If you are intentional of seeing God in a new light, because circumstances happen to us. Some are self-inflicted, but others just happen because life is lifing, as people say. So what then happens when you're pulled into a situation that you didn't plan for, or looks different, or you just don't want to be in, but you can't do anything about it? You have no other choice but to live through it. I think when you choose to just live through the season, if it's different, it allows you to really experience a richness in life. Going back to the whole element of suffering and why it's important in our lives, it gives us the opportunity to just see a newness or a richness in life that we wouldn't have otherwise embraced if it was not there. I guess maybe that's why, like, people in the West are so appreciative of summer, because they know how winter feels like, or spring, because they know how hot summer can feel. There's an element that just cannot be experienced in the same season. I don't know if that makes sense. Every season is different, and the difference is worthy of accepting. I don't know if that makes sense. It's deserving of our acceptance, because they allow us to see life or experience things in a new way, which is good. It's not bad. I clung on to the fact that I needed to go back to ministry when I got sick for very many years. For about 3 years, I was like, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. And there's a time a friend of mine told me, it's probably important that you see that the old Njambi is not going to be there anymore. You keep wanting to go back to the old Njambi, but the old Njambi is not there anymore. You need to ask yourself, who is the new Njambi, and how does the new Njambi operate? What does she need? How does she look like? How does she want to live her life? Because this is what is the situation right now. If you keep trying to go back to the past, you're robbing yourself, the new self, of something that would be much richer than the life that you had before.
Love it.
It's embrace the moments as they come, I would say. I don't say this lightly as well, because I know life can be very hard. But I guess living in those moments really, really allow for a different perspective when it comes to worship than when we try to cling on to what's in the past. Because God is in the past. God is in the future, but he's also in the present. He's also in the now. He's also in what we're seeing and what we're experiencing momentarily. So how do we learn how to capture that and not miss out on that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a way to land this, Njambi. And thank you so much for your insightfulness, for your wisdom, and just the perspectives that you've gathered over the years in your journey, your story, and your perspective about God. And I'm truly grateful. I'm more than grateful to have you here today, and I'm looking forward to have you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can have me, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
this was really, really cool.
Yeah.
A good break from the quietness, I would say,
Yeah.
which I welcome.
Yeah, so I was gonna make you sing for us today, but you said no at the beginning.
She will not do it.
So I'm pretty sure in the next time I'm having you on here, you'll definitely have to sing for us, right? Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
But you're such a great testimony. I think you being here, because I remember there's a time I called you when you were unwell and you couldn't even speak. And I feel like I've seen side of your journey and your story.
You've been there through it.
Yeah. Seeing you in rehab, in Karen, and I think seeing you today, you're literally a living testimony, And I thank God for everything that He's doing in your life, and I truly believe that your story today is definitely going to impact a lot of lives and just give restore hope to a lot of people. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Karibu sana. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's episode. I do believe that you have been blessed by Njambi's story today, and there's a lot to learn from her story, and something that you can pick on and perhaps even implement in your own life. But thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to having you join us in our next episode. Remember to subscribe to this channel. Would you share this episode with your friends? Give it a thumbs up. And on the comment section, let us know, one of the things that you've taken out from today's episode. But until next time, it is a goodbye.